Hello beautiful people, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about everyday carry. In particular, stuff that I use on a day-to-day basis in my life as a professional photographer. Now, I guess I've been involved in EDC without knowing it really for the last 3 decades, because working as I do on location all over the place, the stuff that you carry with you is really important because you can't just get what you need from somewhere else, so you have to have it with you. I'm not talking about cameras or lenses or lighting or computer gear or anything like that. I'm talking about the stuff that I use to kind of keep, to ensure the smooth running of the day, for both for myself, to keep stuff running around me and make sure that the job gets done. So recently my YouTube channel has been jam-packed with EDC things from other YouTubers, and a lot of the time I just find it a little bit unrealistic and quite expensive. And so I thought I'd do my own video based on my real experience over the last 3 decades. And a lot of this stuff is practical, a lot of this stuff is not that expensive. A lot of this stuff you might already have versions of it knocking around by yourself. 2 things. One, a lot of people make these videos as Christmas lists, shopping lists, I guess. But I understand that most of my most of my viewers are people a bit like me, male of a certain age, and as such we just get crisps and socks and Toblerone for Christmas, right? So maybe this could be a shopping list for yourself for the January sales, as opposed to shopping list for other people. Who knows? The next thing I want to talk about is I will try and provide a link to as many things as I can if I can figure out how to do it. But some of this stuff's been with me for a while, so I don't even know if you can make it anymore. But if I can, I'll leave a list with links, and none of it's sponsored, by the way. I've bought all of this stuff with my own money, but if you click the link, obviously it'll be an affiliate link if I can figure that out. If I can't, you'll have to go on your own detective journey and figure out what is right for you. Again, as always, these things are based on my experience. Yours will be different. Everyone will have different thoughts. This is just my stuff that I use on a day-by-day basis. And it doesn't always live in this pouch. Sometimes it's in my pocket, sometimes it's in camera bags. It kind of moves around and chops and changes depending on circumstances. With all of that said, let's get into it. And I guess the first thing that we should talk about is a camera. What would be my everyday carry camera? I'm not talking about the main gear that I carry on assignment with me. I'm talking about a sidearm of choice, if you like. And for the longest time, I was carrying this Canon G7X Mark II. I've been using these things since before they were trendy. These days they are quite trendy. I've made a couple of other videos about it, about a review and how I set it up. And I used this for years for behind the scenes video content and stills. And it is a very capable camera, but time has moved along and this thing is battered now. So don't tend to use this so much. Before this, many years before this, I was often seen to be carrying the Olympus Mu. Anyone remember these? Which was a 35mm film camera with a 35mm lens, and I carried this for years in very similar kind of way that I would use this, just as a sort of backup, and also just to capture pictures as and how they happen. These days, weirdly, I guess it's impossible to talk about cameras that fit into pockets without talking about the Osmo Pocket DJI, which is just awesome for creating video. And this will often be kind of in a pouch or in a pocket with me, just because it is so handy, along with the absolutely brilliant mics that DJI do. And this thing is quite handy just as a little sound recording device that you could also sync with another camera if it's windy or something like that. Just a point of note. But the camera that I'm often seen wandering around with these days, not for work but kind of for just fun I guess, would be the Canon 5D Classic with a 40mm pancake lens, which is I bought this about a year ago. I've been using it, and I find that because it's so kind of simple to use and you capture these kind of snapshot style pictures with it, I've just been using it a lot as a walk around camera. I'll make another video about both the camera and the lens, but really cool. But the camera, inevitably, the thing that's replaced them all on a day-by-day basis is an iPhone. I've got the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and it just kind of does everything that I need as an everyday camera. It creates amazing behind-the-scenes footage if I need to do that. It creates amazing video footage if I need to do that. The image quality is far superior to what I need for kind of snapping pictures of family or friends, that kind of thing. And most importantly, one of the things that I need my kind of sidearm of choice camera to be able to do is, if I take a picture with it, I need it to be of superior enough quality that if I need to use it commercially, then I can at a push. And this is the first iPhone that I think does that in raw mode. Well processed images from this are amazing, and you can share them. So if I happen upon a very historic situation or some amazing light or something that I just need to pull a camera out and shoot and be confident that I'd be able to present it to a client or print it for my portfolio, then I would be quite confident of this. Also, it does all of the other stuff that an iPhone does as well, so you kind of have that. I'm no fan of these things. I've said in other videos I want my phone to be my phone and I want a camera to be a camera, but these things have now got so good that I just can't ignore it. So sadly, that is my sidearm camera of choice. And there's a few other bits and pieces in here that go with that, which we'll get into in a minute. Okay, so the pouch. The pouch is called a Think Tank. Think Tank make amazing bags, and they make a variety of different pouches and cases, and I use all of their stuff. But this thing is called the Stuff It, the Think Tank Stuff It. And it goes on your belt if you want it to, or you can just carry it, or you can put a shoulder strap on it, or quite often you can also just slot it into a camera bag or an overnight bag, and it works like that as well. I've used this bag for so many different things, and it's amazing because it kind of expands, but it's small. It's just about the right size for everything. So Think Tank Stuff It. Okay, let's get into what is inside. And I think that the first thing that we should talk about are multi-tools or knives or Swiss Army knives, that kind of thing, because that tends to feature so much in these types of videos. And obviously we have some certain sort of problems with those things these days, because you can't carry locking blades, you can't carry blades beyond a certain length, so you'll have to do your own research into that. Don't take my word for any of this stuff, okay? You do your own research into it. For me, I've used so many of these things over the years. I've been carrying these things for years and years and years, and the thing that was the most popular for me for many years is a Leatherman Wave, a Leatherman Classic, the big hitter, I guess, of the Leatherman world, in this nylon pouch. And I was given this as a gift about 20 years ago, and oh my good Lord, it has been my friend, and I've never lost it. I've lost it and then found it again on multiple occasions, but stuck with me. Not like some of the others. I've lost multiple other knives and things over the years. But this thing has pliers, which are really substantial pliers, wire cutters. You can kind of do so much with this thing. It really is a proper multi-tool. It has a blade which locks, which is a problem these days, which is, you know, why I don't use this so much on a day-to-day basis. It has these amazing scissors inside, which, you know, are always very, very cool to use, and it has screwdrivers and bottle openers. You can do your own research. I use the Leatherman Wave. I think it's a wonderful tool, and I've had it for many years. It also has a saw inside, which is crazy, right? Not that one, it's that one. And you know, I'll give you a quick example of how I've used this over the years. I was doing a shoot for an advertising agency, lifestyle picture, looking over a country park with a bunch of models having a picnic on the ground underneath, but very, very long, thin picture. And the picture needed to be really specific about what was where, because they wanted to put text into the billboard that this was being shot for. I ended up climbing a tree to get the position, and there was only one place really to shoot the picture from, but there was a branch in the way. So I climbed along the branch, and using this thing cut the branch off, and it enabled me to get the picture. That's kind of, you know, a good example of how these things come into action on a live photography shoot. Often I won't carry these days because of the blade, depending on the circumstance. I've had multiple Swiss Army knives, love them, absolutely love them. But there's a sea of smaller multi-tools on the market, like this little sucker, which kind of actually, you know, things like this have kind of, they're very clever, they're very small, they're very well built, they're very modern, they kind of know exactly what you need, and enable, you know, in a very small space to put all kinds of really clever things in. I'll leave a link to which one this is. I'm not so keen on this, to be perfectly honest. The tool that has stuck by me over the years, and I've had many of them, I've lost many of them, is this tiny little number in here, which is a Swiss Army knife classic, Victorinox classic, and it's tiny. And the reason it's been so brilliant in my life is that I've always got it with me. It's and like I said, the first one I had Good Lord, that came everywhere with me, but finally I ended up losing it at an airport. So I had it in my pocket, I forgot to put it in my suitcase, and an airport guy took it off me, and I was almost in tears as I watched it go down that kind of hole at the airport. I think lots of people have got stories about that. I know of a few people that have buried these things at airports over the years to stop, you know, that when they're forgotten, they're still in their pockets because they're so small, it's easy to forget. The most important tool on here, weirdly, is the scissors. It has these really lovely, very well made scissors, which are really useful for so many different things. The next most important thing, I guess, is that it has a blade, which is actually surprisingly sharp, surprisingly useful, not locking, not big enough to be illegal, and is actually really handy for so many things. The next tool is that you have this kind of nail file, but I don't know about that, but it has on the end a screwdriver, and the screwdriver is actually really useful for multiple things. You have tweezers, which are just so useful for so many different things. I won't go into details, but that's kind of got me out of trouble a few times. And it has a little toothpick. Don't know about that, but you can replace these. There's a little scene online now of things that you can get to replace these tools with, and you can get some stuff that's kind of much cooler, I guess, like little fire lighters and things like that. Also on this key ring, I've taken my keys off just for the purposes of this video, but on here I have a dog tag, which I have had for nearly 20 years. And this dog tag has saved me from tripod screws, tightening up things, releasing things, prizing things out of things, who knows what, you know, multiple times. Dog tags, very cool. This was from a Welsh colliery. A Welsh coal miner would have had this to have logged into work. I don't know where you'd find another one of those made of solid brass. Been really, really useful. And the other thing, you could probably find one somewhere, some antique shop, who knows. The other thing that I've got in here is something that my brother-in-law gave me, which is a tiny little thumb screwdriver for tightening up spectacles, eyeglasses. And it's really cool because it just kind of has this cover. I'll do a close-up, and then it just has a little Phillips head and a little straight screwdriver head that you can do with your thumbs, and that is just so useful for those camera screws, little camera screws that come loose, little lens screws that come loose. If anybody's had one of those 70-200 Canon 2.8 lenses where the nose went wobbly, these tighten it up a treat. Let's pop those back in there, and we will crack into the, in fact, let's leave that out. Okay, so in the back here, let's start at the back. So I am a very visual person. I don't know about you. I love writing things down. I like paper. I like pencils. I like making lists. I like writing down thoughts. I like drawing. I like kind of just keeping things real, getting out of my head the thoughts that I have and putting them onto paper. I can do it on a computer. I can do it on an iPhone. Doesn't work so well for me. The actual act of putting them onto paper works really well. And again, journaling is quite trendy these days. I've been doing it for the last 3 decades without really even calling it journaling, just, you know, writing stuff down in bits of paper and in books. If I look around me now, I can see 4 or 5 journals that I kind of got on the go for various different purposes. And in my everyday carry, the thing that I quite like are these really, you can spend a lot of money on these things. I really like these really simple little sketchbooks. A6 sketchbook is cheap as chips. People have these waterproof ones. I've never been writing in the rain, and I'm in the rain all the time. But when I'm in the rain, I don't kind of think, you know what I need to do? I need to write something down. It just doesn't happen. I just keep this in there, and I've never had a problem with these things. You just dry them out if they get wet. It's all a bit kind of cheap and easy, right? None of this stuff is too complicated. And just to sort of prove that I'm not kind of cranking on a load of nonsense, this is a little book, a little journal that I had in the year 2001. And it's great. I found it this morning in a treasure chest. It's full of post-it labels and business cards and airplane tickets and ideas and thoughts and pictures and press passes from various different things, and drawings of treasure maps and kind of craziness. I love all of that stuff. This thing is kind of cool. Less than £2. It has a dual purpose as well, because you can kind of store things in it, like little bits of paper or kind of anything that's kind of you wouldn't know what else to do with. You could, in here I've got a bit of spinnaker tape, which I've been carrying around with me for the longest time. I love spinnaker tape. I'll come on to tape in a minute. Spinnaker tape is great because it's good for fixing things that are very flexible. Also, I have used these things in various different forms. If you're trying to light a portrait of somebody and you need a small reflector for your flash gun, something like that, you can use one of these. It can come in handy, just a dual purpose, and you will find that a lot of the things that I'm talking about in here have dual purposes. So in terms of what I write in this with, that I carry a couple of different pens and different types of pens and things with me. I like pencils. My current writing, drawing implement of choice is a propelling pencil. Had multiple over the years. This is the one that I'm finding is currently the best. It's a Staedtler, and it's got wide lead. It's a 0.7 mil propelling pencil, and it's great because I love the way that the lead feels on the paper, and I just kind of prefer that to a pen a lot of the time. It has a dual purpose, which is that if you're like me and you travel a bit, you might need to carry various different SIMs for your phone. And if so, you need the pin to make the little tray come out. And often you won't have the little pin because you'll have forgotten it. And then trying in an airport or something to get one of those trays out is really difficult. This thing pops it out. The end is perfect for that. So it has this wonderful dual purpose. On the other side of here, you will notice that I also have a pen. I've got Sharpie. I've been using Sharpies for years because they're great for writing on anything. So if you need to write on, let's say, a hard drive because you're handing it off to a client and you want to write the date or your name or whatever the thing is that you're needing, or on an envelope to post something or to freight a box or something, Sharpies are the tool. You'll notice that it's wrapped in tape. We'll come back to that in a minute. Also, a reason for carrying the pencil is, I guess we could do it with this. I don't know whether this is still relevant in this day and age, but the reason I started carrying a pencil was about 15 years ago when I was shooting a lot of manual video, when I would use a pencil to mark on the lens where the focus was. So if I wanted to do a focus drift, I would make 2 marks and I would then move the lens between the points. And a pencil is very good for that because it rubs off and doesn't kind of mess your lens up. That's kind of why I think I started carrying, one of the reasons why I started carrying a pencil in the first place. Okay, so that is us covered, and I have got multiple different pens and things that I use, and you will notice something about them, that they all have bits of tape wrapped around them. And I've been doing this again, I can't remember, I think I started doing it when the strobist scene came around and we were using multiple flash guns with gel taped to them and stuff like that. And I kept finding myself not with a roll of tape. And a roll of tape like this is very useful, but it's a big roll of tape. You can kind of, you know, do what a lot of people do and kind of put it on your arm if you're doing a lot of taping up cables and stuff. That's cool, right? But that often won't be with you. Whereas a little bit of tape wrapped around your propelling pencil, if you need to repair something or tape up a little something on a light or add a little bit of coloured gel to something or tape down a cable, that will be with you. Very useful. And I've got multiple different types of tape: gaffer tape, electrical insulation tape. And to give you, you know, I'm sort of looking for real world examples. Look, this table is held together with gaffer tape, by the way. But if I look here, this is a lens that I dropped, you know, to prove that I'm telling you the truth. I dropped this lens in Barcelona, I don't know, something like 10 years ago now. And I repaired it with gaffer tape. And it's still held together now, you know, perfect. So all of this stuff is kind of evolved for a reason. Let's move on. Okay, so let's pop all of this here and you know, line it up nicely, right? EDC style. In here also is a wallet. Now, I have no idea where this came from because my good friend Simon bought it for me as a birthday present. Thank you very much, Simon. I'm sure you can kind of find something similar if you're interested. This is wonderful because it keeps all of your cards together in a really the most compact fashion possible, basically, and any other bits and pieces that you want. I keep money tucked into this thing because I think money is a great thing to have. Even in this cashless society, money is great for so many things. So I always keep a little bit of cash with me. I keep some coins with me in here as well, in this bottom zip, because when we're talking everyday carry, a few coins, a few quid will come in handy if you're trying to park and there's the meter doesn't accept cards, which where I live, that happens from time to time, and it's really disruptive on a shoot if you can't park. So I keep enough parking money with me, old school style. One added benefit of this is that it won't allow people to swipe your cards to fraud you from to steal your money. That has the ability to stop that contactless thing happening, which is a big problem these days. And in here I have my I know that you can use your wallet on your phone for these things, but I have a bank card, I have a Tesco's club card, which these days is particularly useful. I have my climbing wall subscription card, and I also have this thing, which is something that I've seen in some other everyday carry videos. I've been using it for a while now, and as I find myself using my iPhone as my everyday carry camera, one of the problems with this thing is if you're trying to shoot behind the scenes video footage, you have a very capable camera, but you have no means of stabilizing it. And if you're somewhere kind of where there is lots of ledges and stuff, you can obviously wedge it in somewhere. And I've been doing that for a while, but I often would find that I'm recording and I turn around and the phone has dropped. And it's just kind of a problem, right? Stuff like that happens all the time, and it's just disruptive. You could prop it up against a baked bean tin if you want to, that kind of thing. By the way, anyone can guess what I've been doing? Obviously not photographing ravioli. I didn't want to take it down for the sake of this video because it's actually quite intricate to set up. Sorry, onwards with the video. This little thing is kind of cool. It's lovely to kind of play with. And it is a little mini tripod, a credit card sized mini tripod for the phone. And it means that you can jam your phone into it and it will hold the phone up no matter where you are, and it kind of enables you to get the footage that you want. It's also cool for, if you're in a hotel and you're wanting to watch a video or something, a Roy Riley YouTube video, you can just prop that on the side of the bath while you stretch out in your king-size bath and watch until your heart's content, whatever the hell it is you're doing, who knows. This has been really useful, and it's wonderful because it is, like with all EDC stuff, it is with you. I've got tripods that support iPhones, I've got all of that stuff, but when I actually need it, have I got it with me? No. Will I have this with me? Actually, it turns out probably, and that's kind of cool. From my perspective, these are about £30, so they're not the cheapest of things. But actually, in terms of the footage that it enables for me to get, it's kind of very valuable. Thank you, Simon, for that, by the way. It's a great wallet. Line these things up, nice and neat. Right, the next thing that is in here at the bottom, power bank. Now, obviously, we all have power banks, right? Loads of them. I've got bunches of them. Look, got big ones, I've got little ones, I've got these. This is covered in tape, again, the big one. This tends to live in my camera bag. I've got a few of these. I gaffer tape them onto tripod legs, all sorts of things like that. The reason that this fits into my everyday carry pouch is because it's small, light and cheap and has enough power to power the iPhone. It's got USB-C sockets on it and a traditional USB, and it has a 10,000 milliamp power bank, so it can charge the iPhone 15 Pro Max 1.5 times or something like that technically, and it can also charge things like the Osmo Pocket and the mic, and various other things if you need to. Now this is emergency. This is not a solution, a full-time solution to everything. This is small, light, emergency, get you out of jail power, and it works really well. Also cheap, less than £15, I think. And so many of the things that are in here, I make them cost effective because I know that I'm probably going to end up losing them, right? In an ideal world we wouldn't, but in the real world we do from time to time. Cheap, small, light, easy, and just enough power to kind of get you out of trouble. That sits right down at the bottom. Actually, let's pull it out. There we go. Okay, into the main compartment. Now, this is great because it has a zip that kind of opens it right up, okay? So let's have a little look. The first thing that I can see in here is my little flexible USB-C charging lead. Now this is a powerful thing because it is a high-speed data cable and it is a high wattage charging cable. So I can use it to charge the phone, or if I want to connect something to a hard drive, I can do all of that with this thing. It's tiny. I have made the kind of decision to make as much of my things USB-C as possible, because then I only have to carry this. I don't have to carry lots of other things. In here as well. Okay, so day-to-day living, obviously we all are perfect and we arrive looking like James Bond to every social gathering that happens or every assignment, every business meeting. But sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes in the real world that just doesn't happen. So in here I have a portable toothbrush and paste in a little plastic container. Now, anyone that knows me will know that I've been walking around for years with camera bags with a toothbrush sticking out the side, with toothpaste. You know, it's like that's how I live. I just live with my world kind of like there is a certain amount of chaos. But these things are wonderful. I found them a while ago. You buy them in a pack of 5 or 10 and you just throw them into everything that you have, one into everything. And then when you're staying in a hotel suddenly last minute without any notice, you can brush your teeth. Cheap as chips and very, very adaptable. And you've got enough paste in there to last a few days, you know. It's kind of not perfect, but you know, it gets you out of trouble. In terms of personal hygiene, also I will often end up with obviously we use deodorant, we use all of those things, but I will often end up carrying kind of a small aftershave squirter, because, you know, it's a great way to freshen up on assignment, right? A few other bits of personal care coming up. In here we have some business cards. In here we have the next thing that I guess everybody talks about are torches. Now, I've had so many torches over the years, good Lord, you know, multiple torches. The reason being, let me just kind of expand a little bit upon that. Right, I live in a country where it's dark a lot of the time. For a lot of the year it gets dark in the late afternoon. My eyesight isn't getting any better. Camera bags tend to be dark, boots tend to be dark. I work all over the place, sometimes on location. Light is everything. Being able to see is everything. And I don't know if I can reach it. For the longest time, let me grab this. For the longest time I had this big boy, which was the original Maglite, which was fantastic. And it was great because it was bright, but also it was kind of added a lot of security if you needed it. At that era, I also had the little Maglite Solitaire, which is still very cool, but that is AAA battery driven, and you know, life's too short these days. I have a sea of torches basically, but there is 2 torches that have really stuck the test of time. And one is here, which is just I've had multiple head torches, I guess, over the years. Petzl Nano or something like that has been very useful because it's quite low power. And then this is an Amazon special called the Lighthouse, which I've been using so much recently because it is really bright and actually really useful to just stick on your bonce, and it's perfect. USB-C charging, but the torch that I have had for a while now and just does everything that I need it to do, and I find myself using it more than anything else, is this tiny little sucker in here, which is a cheap plastic USB-C chargeable, 120 lumens I think. It's called a Beckler on Amazon. I can't remember what it was, 10 quid, 20 quid, something like that. Cheap, not very bright, only 3 settings, which is low, high and off, but it's kind of bright enough. I stick it in my mouth. I can stick it literally in anywhere that you want. It's light enough to do that, and it is just the right amount of light for digging into your camera bag, for digging in your boot, for if you're walking down the road and it's really dark and you need to check if it's muddy, that kind of thing, like day-to-day use. And these are so cheap and so small that you can kind of have them practically anywhere in your life. Also, the secondary use that I have for a light is if I'm on a shoot and I need a light. Sometimes you need to kind of light for video. Sometimes you need to use a light for lighting a subject. Sometimes you want to kind of stick a light in something. Let's say, you know, something along those lines. Who knows? Kind of like to prove a point or to highlight something. Then this is kind of cool for that as well. So it has a secondary purpose. Very, very impressed with this. And I know there are some more expensive versions that are kind of similar, but this to me, because of its cheapness and because of its lightness, I mean, that really is feather light. What else do we have in here? Okay, I have a USB-C card reader. which is for an SD card and also for a micro SD card. And this will go into the iPhone 15 Pro Max, which is really cool. It'll also go into my MacBooks or my, whatever other Apple things that you have. Really useful for if I am on a shoot, I don't have my laptop directly with me, and I want to get a picture from the camera into the iPhone. I know you can do it via Wi-Fi, but if you've shot a lot of RAW files, it can take a while. And sometimes some of the apps are, depending on what camera you're shooting with, sometimes it can be just a challenge to do that, whereas you plug this in and then you can just scroll through the card. It's also very useful. I carry a spare card and a spare SD and micro SD card in it, because like all photographers, I fear that one day I will go on a shoot and I will not have the card in the camera. And nearly all of my cameras, from the old DSLRs onwards up to the mirrorless, have the option of shooting on the SD card. So if the worst thing in the world happens and I end up on a shoot and I've taken all of the cards out and for some reason left them somewhere, or there is a problem, who knows, then I am covered. I've got a certain amount of backup. Also, on those memory cards, you could put, other things that you might need to share, travel details or things like that, if you so wish, if you need to sort of be able to use them between different computers, maybe. Okay, what else do we have in here? Small comb, which is quite useful for personal preening. And then we have, first aid. I carry some first aid pills, some paracetamol, some ibuprofen, and any other sort of specific medication, just enough for a day in something like this. I have a first aid kit, which I throw in my overnight bag with all the, a bit more in. I've found over the years that there's no point carrying bandages and plasters and stuff. What I typically end up doing if I cut myself is a bit of gaffer tape, a bit of tissue paper, something like that. Seems to do the job reasonably well. But I do have a first aid kit generally in my car or in the camera bag, overnight bag. A couple of other little bits and pieces in here. What's that down there? Allen key. So, tripod plates, all of that kind of stuff. I've tried multiple different sort of multi-tools for that, and they're generally big and they're generally not with you. What I generally end up doing is gaffer taping one of these to the specific thing that I need it for. So if I've got a tripod that needs tightening regularly, I will gaffer tape one of these things to it, or I just carry a couple of those, the actual tools. There's you can also get like the little, sorry, I've just dropped it. You can just get the little bits, whoops, for those sort of multi-tool kits. I've generally got a few of those lying around as well. Elastic bands. Elastic bands to me are a wonderful thing. One, you can flick them at people. Two, you can kind of use them for holding your trousers up with if your belt breaks, who knows. There are multiple different uses, but there is one reason in particular that I started carrying elastic bands. And that is that shooting with the Canon 5D Mark II, anyone shooting video with that 15 years ago, or whenever it was, will know how difficult it was to pan with that camera. You put a pan head and then you loop one of these things around the arm and you can pull it. I will maybe demonstrate it. You can have a nice smooth pan. So since then, I have always had an elastic band with me. Okay, let's talk about headphones. I like music, I like audiobooks, I like watching videos. People have Apple AirPods. I've had Apple AirPods, but they were my wife's old ones and they only lasted about 2 minutes, and I was always too tight to spend the 200 quid on a new pair. So instead I have this thing, which is very, very useful. Looks kind of renegade, right? You put it on your head and it brings the Bluetooth earphones to your head. Now this is very, very useful for a number of reasons. One, they don't fall out. If you're actually an active person that actually lives and does stuff, then AirPods will fly out. Some of those things will fly out. Some people have ears that they don't fly out of. I've got big ears, they fly out of my ears sometimes, depending on what it is that you're doing. But this thing doesn't. It's also really cool, It also, if you're on a plane and you need to sleep, you can do that. It also kind of warms your ears up if you're cold. Multiple uses, okay? When you think about it, if you then strap this thing to your head, good Lord. You know, think of the potential that you have with this, because you now have light on your head and you now have sounds from your phone on your head. The other thing that I carry on a daily basis are these things, which are sunglasses, because I'm a qualified drone pilot and I also have dodgy eyesight, and making sure that you have sunglasses as a photographer when you're outside in bright light, sunset, things like that, it's essential, people. Don't wait too long. Get yourself some decent sunglasses. I tend to use Oakley Holbrook XL sunglasses, but my current pair of those have got scratched up. So these are called O'Neill Harlin sunglasses, and they are really cool. I really like the colour that it makes everything. And there's a really nice message on the inside which says, "It's always summer on the inside." And I like that every time I read it, and every time I put them on, because they have a very warm tone. They just make everything kind of look cool. So with this headband on, you can now have sunglasses up there, light, sound, everything's cool. If you really think about it, you could also put your propelling pencil inside, and that is like the ultimate everyday. Or actually, I guess you could also put your notebook. Thinking about it, you know, you could also do your toothbrush. Don't know about some of the other things that we have here, you know. For fun, I tend to, as well as sticking things on my head, I tend to carry a hacky sack. If you spend a lot of time in airports, if you spend a lot of time with sort of downtime on shoots, waiting for the sun to come out or anything like that, you know, actually quite a useful thing to have, because it's a kind of balance thing. I like juggling and all of that stuff. Hacky sacks are cool. There is one other thing in here that I carry, two other things actually. In terms of personal hygiene, contact lenses, really important to have those. I have these things, Mr. Wipes. These are little kind of cleansing wipes for various different uses. You can use them to clean your glasses, you could use them to clean your hands if you've been eating a curry and you happen to have forgotten your fork and you're covered in curry. If you've spilt your bacon bap juice all down your shirt before the shoot, these things come in really useful. All sorts of different purposes. You know, people say that baby wipes are for babies. Maybe I'm just a baby, but you know, wet wipes are useful for me. And the last thing that I have is a pair of underpants, which you may find to be a slightly strange addition to an everyday carry. But let me explain. We live in a world that we don't ever know what's going to happen, right? You might think that you are exempt from shitting yourself. I know that I'm not. It happens sometimes. It's the real world. And I'll tell you one thing, a pair of underpants are much more useful than a £400 wallet or a legal knife. That is for sure. For a number of reasons. One, you might shit yourself. That's cool. But two, I do a lot of wild swimming, and having a spare pair of underpants when you jump in the river a lot is really useful. Three, you can clean your camera lenses with them. Make sure they're clean first. Number 4 reason is if it's really cold, you can kind of put them on your head, covering the rest of your everyday carry. And, you know, it's a hat, right? Perfect. But the other reason, which is much more important and much more valuable, is that if you have the need, which does happen sometimes, to go into superhero mode. See if I can get my foot in there. Oh, look at that. You can't see. Ah! You can easily do that with a spare pair of underpants that you've got in your everyday carry. Much more important than all the other stuff that other people will tell you to carry. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. Happy Christmas, Happy New Year. Bye-bye.